right. Welcome back to the Last Week This Week podcast, episode 39. I'm Ian Scott.
And I'm Zack. I'm Ken.
You are Ken.
This is our late Halloween special.
It is. And we're excited to be back with you all, discussing some news like usual, some Marvel news, some news from director Matthew Vaughn.
Some A24 news.
The Office,
and
we got a review.
We got a hypothetical. Its triumphant return.
It's been a long time. It
has been a long time.
I'd like to have the return of hypotheticals.
I would like the return of hypotheticals.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna start today with our trusted reviews, and so it's Gen V, the whole season 1 we're reviewing. So I think like you, I watched this finale today. What were your thoughts on how this season kind of wrapped up? Because I think the last time we talked about it, we just
only
reviewed
did
episodes 1 through 3.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
I guess I will say as a whole, I think it's not as well written as a show as The Boys, but it's just as interesting, and I am consistently excited and invested, and I like all the characters. And I think there was a point in the middle where I liked what was going on, but I didn't know, like, it didn't feel as big as like I felt like it was going. But then once we got to like 6, 7, and 8, especially 7 and 8, it just
the stakes
really
are just huge,
ramped up.
Right? Absolutely.
And I think that the finale was great. It, like we haven't said it, but like we read that season 1 is going to flow into The Boys season 4, and then season 4 is going to flow into Gen V season 2.
Right. They clearly set it up.
They clearly set it up that way, and I am terrified for Boys season 4.
I guess I'm more terrified for like Gen V season 2 because of what happens like to the kids, like the main characters that we know. That's fair.
I mean, but it ended in a way that made me like go like no, because I wanted to know what the fuck happened. Which like I have an idea of what happened.
I mean, we can get it, like, of the usual like manipulating that Vaughn does. We can get the idea of what happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I'm totally on the same page. For the most part, I think there were like a couple of times where I was like, the writing's like a little iffy here.
Right.
But I mean, for the most part, I was so happy with the quality of the show. And I mean, like I praise the characters from the start, and I think the characters, like the more the season grew, the more complex they became, and the more complex the relationships became, and I think they killed it. Like characters and character chemistry, they couldn't have done a better job in the show. And I think like my favorite kind of a genre is a mystery, and I think they've really killed it with the mystery of this season. I think they were able to add on more and more to it as the season went on. I think the finale is insane. I didn't expect it to be that big of a kind of like a, I mean, in a way, it's like your traditional Marvel like finale, because there's like a big kind of like superhero fight, and it kind of culminates to that. But I think it was really well done, and it ends in a way that where all the main characters are really screwed, like insanely screwed. and so is the world, really. But at least soup lives are saved. So there's that.
But are they?
Yeah, I mean,
but are they?
Speaking of that, I mean, that was so amazing. I think like the way this show at first makes you feel like, oh well, like some of the a lot of the superheroes are pretty great, and like a lot of the characters you're following like aren't bad people at all. So like do you really want to keep like rooting for this like butcher side of the story as well, where he just wants to kill every soup, right? But and then it gets to a point where you're like, oh well, do I like Indira because she's like kind of on Butcher's side technically? And I don't know. It's just they manipulate the sides so well to where you don't know which side you should be on, and I don't know. It's pretty amazing. It's so happy with how these two shows really work well together.
Right? Yeah. The complexity and the switching of your opinion of characters with new information was done extremely well. Like I thought it was great to have I want to say her name's Marjorie, but I don't think that's right. But whoever the woman is who like takes Ryan in and was like the like
Mallory. Mm-hmm.
Having her and being like, you remind me of Butcher. Great.
Yeah.
And also
Victoria Newman. I mean, she was amazing. I didn't expect that connection with her and Marie. That was incredible.
And there was like a picture of Marie in season 3 of The Boys in the database. So like this has been planned for a minute, it
really has,
which is great.
It's incredible. But yeah, I mean, obviously at this point, we've been putting out minor spoilers, so spoiler review at this point.
Sure.
But yeah, Victoria Newman basically saying, yeah, like you're me basically, and you can be a part of the 7 if you play your cards right. Clearly she didn't play her cards right. And you see that at the very end, where Homelander comes down and
which by the way, one of the scariest scores, like it's almost like a triumphant thing, but it's still so dissonant and scary because it's that it's bad, this is not good.
But I honestly didn't know what way he was going to go. Like, who was he going to get mad at in that situation? But it makes complete sense why he was like, why are you attacking your own people? Do you like that? I was like, oh no. Yeah.
I mean, so it was so interesting after season 3 of The Boys, where he had obviously stoked so much of what you see in the real world today with very extremist sort of groups and people inciting that sort of like mindset.
Right, and we saw it like at the college rally, like and where all of them were like on Homelander's side. Yeah,
right, and it was just such a terrifying but also really well done thing to portray how, like, in a superhero show nonetheless, but to show this like real world things that happen, and so obviously like some of the same rhetoric and horrible things. Like, he specifically said stay back because he knows that, in my mind, he knows that he can just have that soundbite of somebody recording him, and he says, I said stay back, and then you can just manipulate the situation to be like, well, and because you see it with Cameron Coleman in
he's like, I was just protecting my son. I mean,
and you see it with the news anchor Cameron, where he's like, and once again, Homelander swept in, and because it's just this, it's just like a virus of like philosophical ideology, just virus, but with superheroes, of just being like, soup lives matter, and you're like, it's just so. It's so well written, but it's scary.
Now, on the other end, though, I so like with Sam, I really liked how he reacted to those like beliefs.
It was very quick though, right?
It was, and that's my complaint, is that like I think the way he got there was like very forced and quick. But I think I like, you know, where he eventually ends up with that, like where he's very easily influenced because he hasn't had any strong influences in his life, really, you know, and I don't know, and I think it's easy to like rile somebody up like that who's been oppressed by non-soups their whole life, you know. So I think it makes complete sense, but yeah, it was very, very quick, kind of very random how these like college kids were outside of his dorm and just kind of like, hey, come with us. And I don't know, it was just like, yeah. But no, but yeah, I mean, speaking of Sam, like, broke my heart. Just him and Emma, I thought were amazing.
Yeah.
And really bummed for Emma to be betrayed again. Because she didn't deserve that again, you know?
Yeah, and the fact
she's been through a lot.
She like now when she cries, she feels small. She turns small.
Yeah, no, I love that development. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah, and also shout out to one of the best names for a character, which is Rufus.
Which one's Rufus?
Rufus is the like bleached hair guy who like basically roofies you with his mind.
Oh, yeah. That is a great name for that kind of a character. Yeah. But he got everything he deserved.
Which, so by the way, like that, you would think that he would be very much not walking around.
That's what I'm feeling. I'm like, he must have some fast healing or some fast healers on campus that can like really help.
Yeah.
Yeah, because insane that he's just walking around like a normal kid after not having a dick, you know?
Yeah, that's
so. Yeah.
And I was saying earlier when I was watching the finale that it feels like with oh God, what's his name? Who like was in a relationship with Kate.
Andre.
Yeah. So Andre is kind of like Magneto, and Kate's kind of like Xavier, and you know she's. I kind of found this like they're on a school, so it kind of feels X-Men like, and Kate's saying we're better than them, like we deserve our own rights and stuff, and like you should take back like
they
revenge,
right?
And so that's where I kind of took some of this, but she's also a bit of like Jean Grey in the same way that she's kind of losing her mind, and she's
because she was manipulated by the X-Men of the school, like the Xavier of the school, right? No, I think that was another, I think, great twist of this season, was kind of like really making you trust Kate and making you think she was on their side, and then you see all of it revealed, and she finally tells, how it's revealed is that Sam just tells Emma that that's who's been doing all this. But yeah, she reveals it to Andre in the group. I think I might have had a problem with that at one point, how like fast she was to just kind of be like, yeah, it was me, you know. But clearly she had some guilt about this, so I don't have like a huge problem with it.
I had the biggest issue with when she finds out, Shetty loves me, right?
Well, clearly that was like a misdirect, you know?
But it felt weird because she was so upset, and then she's like, you're not lying, you really do love me. And then Shetty says, I have one last thing I need you to do. And I think the next time we see her, she's like freaking out, but she's doing what I think Shetty wanted her to do, but she ends up killing her.
I don't think so.
I think she wanted like the virus to,
I mean, I can't remember exactly what her line is, but like she literally, like Shetty reveals what she wanted Kate to do, which was to make all of like her friends forgetting. I can't exactly remember, but it wasn't like what Kate ended up doing, you know.
All I can say is I felt a little confused because I was like, wait, I thought they were on the same side, and now like I guess maybe we're supposed to assume that she found out and then she got upset, but it didn't.
Well, I think
it wasn't communicated.
I think what we're
very
supposed
well.
to assume is that like after she like really figured out that Shetty actually like truly loved her, you know, Shetty was going to be like, okay, you have this one last task, and whatever that last task was, since I'm not remembering it, like just set her off and was like, oh, okay, so you're a monster. You're actually a monster, even though you love me. So I don't know. I feel you. It was a little like fast.
Like I just like some of the writing just was a little like even with this finale, like they were going to stop. Like they were in a room with Kate and Sam, and they were like, well, all right, let you go. And then like right after that, they say, well, we're going to go stop them. And I was like, well, you could have there, because their next thing is they just go down to the woods and are like, oh, they already got here. And it's like, but what were you going to do? Were you going to do the same thing? You're still just you
well,
three.
I mean, I agree that's a little sloppy because like everyone's there, but the only person who was going to fight them was Jordan. So,
but Jordan was there.
I know, but like the other group members weren't going to fight Kate and Sam at that point. You know, it was just Jordan who was like, well, I'm going to stop you. But Kate, you know, but the other, I don't know. So,
but then when they got down to the woods, I was like, it's still just the three of you. What were you gonna do?
Right. I mean, well, for some reason, those other like Andre and Marie just didn't volunteer to fight at that point. Like, I don't. There's no reason for it. They just don't volunteer, and then they're like, okay, now we're gonna follow. So I don't know. Yeah, that's a little sloppy. I agree. But I do think Shetty killing herself because Kate told her to is like one of the all-time like biggest like holy shit moments in this season.
I don't know. There was a lot of like eat your hands or
a lot of the stuff Kate does is pretty like holy shit.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. I also love the reveal, like all the reveals of like Andre and Jordan kind of being like fucked. Jordan, you know, kind of like knocking out Golden Boy when like Golden Boy was basically going to kill Brink at one point. And then Andre sleeping with Kate while he was alive, while Golden Boy was alive. I was like, oh shit, okay, you are fucked. All right. But yeah, I don't know. That whole episode where they're like in Kate's mind, I really enjoyed.
And the Soldier Boy cameo.
yeah, the Soldier Boy cameo was pretty great. I love Soldier Boy, so hopefully he keeps coming back.
I'm sure he will.
But yeah, I couldn't be more excited about season 4 of The Boys and season 2 of Gen V. I hope it's just these two shows that they stick to and just kind of keep going back and forth. Because if you go more than that, I think it's going to get a little cloudy, convoluted. So
I mean, technically there's 3 shows right now.
How?
There's The Boys Diabolical, which is the animated show that came out a while ago.
I haven't even heard of that.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Have you watched it?
I actually haven't, but I will at some point.
Is it like actually canon to like this whole thing?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little disappointing, but yeah, you know,
I think it's like very loosely connected.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's our review. We're super happy with season 1.
It was great.
Yeah. It was great. Absolutely. So yeah, now we're gonna move on to all the Marvel news that we haven't been talking about in our little absence.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think first news here is that, you know, with the writer's strike ending, Marvel was kind of finally forced to redo all their TV stuff. And so now they finally have real structure to all their shows. They have showrunners. They're going to have show Bibles. There's going to be pilots ordered for shows instead of just ordering full series right at the start. And they're going to try and plan for multiple seasons of shows instead of just a limited series. So that's pretty amazing, I think. And I would give props to Disney, but they don't deserve it since they didn't do this until after the writer's strike was over. So just good news. I'll say it's good news. I think it's good for the state of TV.
I think it's good news. I think that it's great that they're deciding to go the traditional TV route. I will say that
for sure
we'll see how it turns out because they've still never done it before with a showrunner, but I can imagine that it'll probably be better than the way that they've been doing it, because the way, I guess it came out in Variety, there was a whole article that I read the whole thing today, but it was exactly what most of us had suspected, which is that they would just shoot these $150 million or more shows, and they wouldn't do a traditional pilot to see if it worked. They would just kind of hope that it would, in the article it said like they would go and shoot it, and then all the issues that arose in it, they would just try to fix in post-production or do these reshoots, which obviously
this is not how you should plan to do a show.
Right? Yeah, and that a vast majority of these shows were one thing, because of COVID, they wanted to raise the stock price. So they wanted to have all these, there was never supposed to be a lapse between a movie or a TV show. It was supposed to always consistently coming out, which then taxed the VFX artists. So we got unmade VFX in Quantumania and stuff that's added later on in Disney Plus.
I heard that there was stuff in WandaVision that they added after the fact,
right? Which
after release.
I didn't, but I didn't even know that until I read that.
I didn't notice it either, right?
But and so it was that. It was Bob Chapek wanting a lot of a lot more Marvel product,
content, right?
And it all suffered because Kevin spread thin. He used to, like in the article, it was saying he used to be able to land the plane. He's still very much last minute, but at least he was able to pull it off because he was more involved. Well, now he's spread across all these different shows, and She-Hulk was apparently not going to have her transformation shown until episode 8, and
holy crap,
and so they decided that's got to go at the beginning, and so but it's great. They have for example, they have Daredevil, Born Again, which there's a whole lot of stuff to talk about with that, but we
can get right into it if you want.
Yeah. So they have, I don't know the name off the top of my head, but it's the writer, the showrunner of Punisher, the Netflix Punisher. And they're going to have the directors of Loki season 2, which I've done a big 180 on Loki season 2. And I think that they've done a great job. I think Loki season 2.
Okay.
I
couldn't remember what your opinion was on it.
I said it was okay, but now I've not been, especially after episode 4. I
haven't. It's wild. I haven't seen episode 4 yet.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so unfortunately I know the big spoiler in it. But I won't say it for everyone else. Yeah, I'm sure it will. Because I won't say anything.
Right.
But yeah.
But and they got rid of all the writers. They're starting from scratch, getting new.
And they had shot a lot of Daredevil already.
Yeah,
the first 4 episodes. Apparently, he wasn't going to be in a suit. And,
right. And you're not going to have him
Foggy,
in a suit. Foggy's
they basically
gone.
Right. Then that was the reason why he wasn't Daredevil anymore,
for
because he couldn't
year.
say Foggy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, wouldn't that cause him to be Daredevil even more? If he couldn't say Foggy, then he would go even harder into it and not be a lawyer. I don't know. That's just me. But I guess it could go either way.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I buy that. And I think the idea there is good. He couldn't say Foggy. but at the same time, I would argue like maybe that would have been a cool thing to make, like he couldn't say Foggy during season 1 somewhere. And so by season 2, you pick up like where, him dealing with that. But then like Kingpin's the mayor and he's like all about like police enforcement, which like I'm down for.
It's interesting. I don't love it.
But the idea that it was like we weren't going to see him until episode 4 put on the suit. I'm like.
Yeah. And also Karen was never going to be mentioned in the season. So that sucks. Yeah.
But it's nice that they're trying to change that. It's nice that they're trying to do multiple seasons instead of the limited series, which makes me wonder what was supposed to be a limited, like what is a limited series in Disney Plus? Like, I'm just curious. Like,
I don't think Daredevil was ever going to be a limited series.
No, but like, is Moon Knight? Is that just it? Is Miss Marvel that? Is just that? Is I think for some shows, like it's pretty clear that we're not getting a season 2. Like with WandaVision, like with Captain, like Falcon Winter Soldier, we're not getting season 2s for those. And I think those are going to be, and like Hawkeye probably. I think those are limited releases. Mm-hmm. But anything that like I think Moon Knight sets it up for a season 2. So I think that could not be a limited release, but they could choose to make it one. Yeah.
So I think we'll just have to wait and see, unfortunately. But yeah, I think restarting on Daredevil along with all the new TV formatting, it's amazing news. It's a great direction for Marvel. Could be happier.
I'm happy. I'm just frustrated that at the root of all of this is that we have a company that was in charge of properties that, yes, they own, but they expect the IP that they own. They expect, like, I was listening to something today where it was like, we can make a widget, right? So if we know we can make a widget and that's our product, we can just make a bunch of those and we'll get money back on it. But the problem is that the product that they sell is good storytelling and ideas, and it has to be quality, and it's not going to be the same every single time. And they just decided we'll just push it. And now you've gone to the point where VFX artists went on strike because they just literally couldn't handle, like we complained about the VFX for Quantumania because we were like, oh my God, that was, too much. And that movie to them was more finished than what the Marvels apparently was 4 months, months ago.
Wow.
Because
that's scary.
Quantumania came out in February this past year, right? Mm-hmm. So the Marvels was going to come out in July? Or
it was, yeah.
And so it got pushed 4 months later.
So it wouldn't have been ready at all by July. Wow.
And so it's just frustrating that there's so much that like, and luckily like Bob Iger's talked about like, we need to scale back. So it's nice that they're addressing this and that Kevin, because like you were saying, I'm nervous that if we're going to get like Secret Invasion as like a Kevin Feige production, like it's always going to be like this. Mm-hmm. I think like what I've been saying is I don't think it's necessarily this is Kevin's vision. I think he's spread out way too thin, and they've been half baking a lot of these TV shows. Like they haven't been giving. But
I do think he has a vision for like the overall direction of phase 4, 5, and 6 and how that will end. Like I do think he has that vision.
I agree. Yeah. But I think they've not been doing a very good job with the TV shows because they haven't been writing them the way that you would for normal TV shows.
Well, they've been basically making movies into TV shows.
Yeah, right. Which we and countless other people have been saying for a while. Yep. And even the movies have not done particularly great.
No, and there's been a lot of rough movies these last couple of phases.
Yeah. And like further into, like, I guess we can talk about the Marvel stuff is, their projected to hit like 75, 80 million, which
it's pacing like worse than The Flash right now for pre-sales, which is really bad.
I mean, have you heard anybody talk about the Marvels?
I have, and it's only because there's been like a lot of talk online about how this movie will finally like connect everything together. It'll like, there's going to be some big cameo and it's going to finally like bring the multiverse together. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but you can't keep doing this to sell your movies, you know?
Right, exactly. Like I've heard the opposite, which is like they release the Marvels to, like in the article it says they usually do to like their first showing to friends and families. Well, this time they did it to a public audience and they got middling response.
That's what I heard too.
And I've heard like a lot of people say this doesn't necessarily feel like a continuation of Carol Danvers' storyline. This just feels like trying to fit all these, you know, the Miss Marvel, the WandaVision of it all together into, and they're like, it's kind of this mess of a story that's why they've had these extended reshoots. And then you have the director leave 3 to 2 months of post-production of it still being in post-production to go work on her other movie, which clearly symbolizes, I mean, yes, it could be a normal thing like some people are saying, but it's also like, well, if she's not the one like landing this, then like, is it really like her vision by the end of it, you know? And I just think it also speaks to the fact that like, I looked at a picture again and we've talked about it, and it's just suits, but like Miss Marvel is so vibrant and bright, and Captain Marvel's like this dull, like I'm like, what is going on with, and then you know, Monica Monroe is like, or I forget,
is that Monica Rambeau.
Monica Rambeau is like, I mean, her suit's typical, like it's fine, but like it's this, I don't get a grasp on
they
the
don't
movie.
really work all together.
I don't hear any buzz about, I don't hear anybody saying, oh my God, I'm so excited. And I saw
no, definitely not.
I saw like, I didn't see the trailer for it, but I saw that people were talking about, there's like, well, Carol says, I'm going to call my friend in, and this, what's the bridge that like that Thor uses? The yeah, I don't Bifrost,
know. I
the
know.
Bifrost.
There you go. So
a Bifrost, you know, bridge appears, and all you see is like a silhouette, and you're like, and then it cuts, and so people are like, oh my God, like, and this is when the report came out that you know, the numbers were down, and people were suspecting like maybe this is a you know, a gimmick, for sure, a marketing sort of thing, a marketing thing to right, because they're like, oh my God, is that Thor? But then that makes me wonder, like, who else could be, like, well, why is Thor in this fucking movie?
Could be for some weird ass reason. It could be Jane as Thor.
But how would that even happen?
Well, I mean, remember Thor 4 teases her return at the end.
But how would she know Captain Marvel?
I don't know.
So
yeah.
And then this idea that it's going to tie the whole multiverse together, maybe, because like,
I mean, that would be amazingly hard to do,
gauntlets and stuff, but
sure. Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, I'm going to watch it because of this podcast.
Sure. But if we didn't do this podcast, would you go see it?
I probably would. At this, like, it's sad. I'm a guy, like, I've watched all of the Walking Dead stuff because I'm just curious where these characters go. So it takes a long time for me to be like, yeah, I'm done. I would probably
watch it when it went on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I feel you.
And that's not because I don't like Captain Marvel or anything. It's just because I love Iman Vellani as Miss Marvel. Funny enough, I like, if I weren't doing this podcast, I might skip out on like the upcoming Echo show if that were the case. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but there's a reason for that. And so
we can get into that if you want Echo stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I still I do want to circle back to some other stuff, but sure, we can talk about Echo.
So yes, one, I think the trailer looks great, but that's every Marvel trailer. They usually kill it,
but this one particularly feels
it's
different.
A different tone. It's absolutely, it's their first TVMA show,
which I was shocked that they.
Yes, I was shocked for sure. Did I expect this tone after Hawkeye? Absolutely not.
No.
I'm very happy we're getting it. It's very much in line with Daredevil. We see Daredevil in the trailer. That's very cool.
I tried looking for that. Where was he?
I didn't see it either, but I saw a bunch of screenshots of him. Basically I saw screenshots of Daredevil in the trailer.
What was he doing?
He was like in some dark area, kind of like catapulting himself forward. Yeah.
All
so
right.
it's a really quick movement he does. And yeah, so no, yes, the show looks great. I have one complaint with the creator of the show saying that her original power is lame. I think that's a BS comment. Did you not see that?
No.
The creator or director of the show, can't remember which, came out and was like, yeah, her power in the comics is that she can copy anybody's movement. So she can look at you and just kind of copy what you're doing, right? And she was like, but that's kind of lame. So we're gonna be having her have a different power. And I was like, well, I mean, that's honestly really cool. We've had some really cool people do that power. I don't know if you remember or if you ever watched the show Heroes, but there was a character that I really liked who basically she was kind of 18, around 18 years old, but she had this device with her that had 10,000 videos on it, and she could look up whatever skill she needed, and then when she saw it, she'd just be able to do it. So I don't know, I think that's so interesting, and they just kind of we're gonna do something else, and I was like, okay.
Did they say what they were gonna do?
From what I'm hearing, it's her powers are an echo of her ancestors' powers. So I don't really know what her ancestors' powers would have been, but I guess we'll find out in the show. And
what is it that you, if we weren't doing the podcast, that you would skip about it?
So yes, with that, they've announced that this is the first show under the Marvel Spotlight banner, and Marvel Spotlight basically means this isn't connected to the larger multiversal story of the MCU, and it just focuses on street level characters. So you could really skip out on this and not miss anything for the greater universe. And so if I was just really fed up and done with the universe, excuse me, I'd probably just be well, this doesn't really matter to the grand scheme of things, and skip out on it.
This is the issue that I have, is I want that. I don't understand why we've gotten to a point where I do understand some of it, but I don't understand.
Well, it's content fatigue. That's why. We have too much.
No, I understand, but I'm saying, why is it that the only reason that we're gonna care is that if it's if it progresses the overall storyline instead of just getting a really good story,
Sure.
That's why I was really excited when they announced that they're going to do Marvel Spotlight, because finally we can just
focus on street level guys, right?
Or
just individual stories.
Yeah,
right.
Just the same way that you have, even though it won't be exactly the same, you have DC's, was it Black Label, or just separate stories to tell, and it doesn't need to. We don't need to tie it in to everything, because it'll just be its own kind of self-contained as much as possible sort of thing, which is more exciting to me, because I feel with the DCU, there was a bunch of people who were saying, well, why should I watch The Flash if the universe is dying? And And then, at least to us, we thought The Flash was great.
We did, yeah.
And that's all that matters, is that it was a really good movie. And then people say, well, why should I watch Blue Beetle? Well, because it was I thought it was an okay movie. But,
I thought it was pretty good.
Right.
I'll say that, yeah.
But, I just think, it's super exciting to have this overall story. But the reason that we liked a lot of the movies in phases 1, 2, 3, especially in 2 and 3, was because, maybe swap that around a little bit, but was because they were just really good movies, and it was but it was nice that they tied in. Because I wasn't going in to progress the story as much as I was like, I get to see these characters.
Now, I agree with you. I really do. But I think my thing there is that, like, if I felt like, oh, this character will for sure be like a big part of this team going forward in, like, at the end of this phase, then I'd be like, oh, okay, that's exciting. And it ties into the greater story without having to tell a story that's attached to everyone else. It can just be its own story. But now they've introduced so many characters in phase 4. And I don't know. I genuinely don't think half of them are going to be in, like, any big team up story. And so it gets hard to care about these, like, smaller individual characters because you don't think they're going to be going anywhere. But yeah, I mean, but that is what made those first 2-3 phases work, is because they just introduced characters, and then later on they became big parts of the greater story. Right. So yeah,
I still think that Echo is going to show, I do think that Echo, especially because she's in Hawkeye, and I still think she's going to show up in something later for sure.
Yes. And I think that's probably going to be like Daredevil season, 1, she'll show up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what else she'd show up in after that.
Right. Which I think is maybe a good segue to talk about when you're talking about these characters not showing up later on, or what exactly they're going to do in a team-up movie. The article that came out was talking about how whoever was the author of MCU, The Reign of Marvel, was saying that they have somewhat of a quote from Kevin saying that Secret Wars might be their opportunity to do a soft reboot of sorts, and not exactly change everything, but take out what doesn't work, and maybe even bring back some people that we thought were forever gone. And there's even been the idea floated around that they're not entirely 100% sold on, of bringing back people like Black Widow and Iron Man. And they've also talked about maybe recasting Jonathan Majors, which we can also get into. And they also have floated the idea of next saga we go to Doctor Doom or something along that. But
I mean, there's a lot of ideas being thrown around right now.
Yeah. And I think it's smart, now that you do have the multiverse, to take what's not worked and change it all, or not change it all, but take out what doesn't work. But I think it's just unfortunate that it's gotten to this point where we have to do an X-Men Days of Futures Past sort of situation, where with Marvel, where it was so well thought out for the most part, and now they're
you need a cleanup movie, basically.
We're gonna potentially have shows and movies that's well, that's not canon.
Well, okay, so what I think would actually happen here with a reboot after Secret Wars is that you would get how this universe is Earth 616. I think you would basically be following another universe. It wouldn't be 616 anymore. And then you would have this universe that they basically are okay, everything that worked well in phases 4, 5, and 6 is in this universe, and everything that didn't is out. And so And at that point, I really think Kevin Feige would be like, he'd be out. Like, he'd be out of the MCU and somebody else would be spearheading this next phase 7 or whatever, or like phase 1.1,
maybe,
if you want to call it that. So yeah, I think that idea is absolutely going to happen. The others, I'm far less confident in. Like, I think at this point they're going to be sticking with Jonathan Majors because, you know, he has, like, I think they would have honestly canceled season 2 maybe of Loki if that was the case, which I know, which just sounds crazy to say, but like, I think it would be a mistake to put that out if they weren't going to still keep going with a Kang story. I think
I think there's no way that they could have. They had to keep going with Kang. There's no way to stop that, you know, regardless of Loki season 2. Like,
right. So I think they're fine, and I think they're going forward with that path now. The path that I really hate, this report that they would want to bring the original Avengers back, is just, it's so bad. It like, all the discourse online I've seen is like, well, why would any of us care? Like, we saw the conclusion of that group and you're going to make us like have cared about that conclusion for nothing. You know, like it doesn't, it's so obvious what they're trying to do there. And like, oh, well, that worked, so let's just bring everyone back and make some more money. You know, it's just such crap. And yeah, I would much rather see them try and spin something out of what they've made in phases 4 and 5 rather than just revert back to what it was. So, I don't think that'll happen, but
I think that Robert Downey Jr. is definitely coming back.
I think
somehow.
He'll come back in Secret Wars. And I also think, like, I've heard both him and now Chris Evans have reportedly agreed to return at some point. I just don't know when, but I'm assuming Secret Wars is when it will happen.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of, if you're going to get them back together for even a potential Avengers 5, I hope that's not the case, because then I'd be like, what? Like, what? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't
want them in Avengers 5 for sure, which is going to be King Dynasty. I would only want them in Avengers 6, but yeah, we'll see.
One other thing that I wanted to just mention was the Blade stuff.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to intro that, but I can. If
well, it's just, you know, quickly, Mahershala Ali was going to leave Blade after all these script issues, because I think it's been since 2018 or 2019 that he was announced.
I think 2019.
Yeah. And, you know, we've had multiple directors, multiple scripts.
You know, it was supposed to come out at the beginning of this month, the original release date for it.
And now we have the writer of Logan who's penning it,
which is great.
That's great. Yeah. And they're looking at a 2025 release date. And it's just, again, the scripts are just so.
Did you hear about
baked? Because
what that script was going to be?
Yeah, it was going to be like a story. It was going to have these interjections throughout it of like life lessons, and that you'd have these like female characters that were like that they would overtake certain parts of the story that
I heard one of them would be his daughter.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Right. And that she was more of a main character than he was.
Right. Like he was like the fourth main character.
The fourth main character in his own movie. Like, which insane.
You know, and so that just blows my mind. I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
So that makes sense why they're rewriting it, because I don't know what that sounds like. Which, like, I guess you can spin anything to sound kind of crazy, and then you read it, and maybe it's not as crazy as you think, but it sounds crazy.
Fourth lead of your own movie is insane. Like no matter what way you spin it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that when I say like there's these female characters that are in it, like that's the bad thing. It's just when you have like potentially 3 characters that are potentially more a part of the story than Blade seems
ridiculous.
Weird.
Yeah.
But now it's apparently like $100 million or less budget, which makes sense.
Yes, I'm pissed that this is the first movie that is getting that treatment, but I think it makes sense. This is a movie that can be shot on $100 million or less
for sure.
And
do you know how many horror movies are made for like much less?
Right.
And you don't need that much.
You just keep it to Blade. Don't bring anyone else into it. Maybe have Dane Whitman in it.
Yeah.
Because you set that up in Eternals.
Right.
And you just stick with that. You stick with some swordsmen and just have a fun time.
Yeah.
Killing vampires.
Yeah. Maybe Werewolf by Night.
It's funny. I was talking to somebody about it. I think it might have been my dad, and he was like, "Well, just bring back the original Blade Runner writer for the first movie." And I was like, "It's been like over 25 years since that movie, but I mean, it was a great first movie. So maybe get him as a consultant or something." And I don't know if he's still alive. I don't know his name or anything, but I mean, it's been a while,
Right.
But yeah, I'm still worried about it, but I am more hopeful than I guess in the past.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll see.
This is gonna be a long podcast, by the way.
Yeah, it is. It is. So yeah, I say let's move on to Matthew Vaughn news.
Sure. Yeah.
He had a big interview where this is the director, by the way, of Kick-Ass and X-Men First Class and The Kingsman. Where he had this interview where he gave his thoughts on a lot of properties, ones that he has been a part of and ones that he has not. Sorry, go on. You were going to say something?
I was just going to say one other thing. There was that book that came out, right? Where we found out that Wanda actually died.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, that is pretty crazy. Did you want to talk about that before?
I just is she like that? That makes me sad. I did not think that she died.
I agree. I didn't think that she died. And I think that's a bummer that that's how her arc ends. But she does do something heroic in her final act, and she kills herself and destroys the Darkhold. And I respect the final move, but it's a bummer that that's how it ends for sure. Yeah. So I think we might see her again in Secret Wars, and I think that might be it. Unfortunately,
that blows my mind.
It does. It does blow my mind. But yeah, I think that's all Marvel news. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so with Matthew Vaughn, first news or first thing he commented on here, I will pull up. So apparently, I guess he pitched his own Superman movie before Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. In his version, he apparently pitched that Krypton it's not destroyed until he's an adult Superman. And basically,
there's like a max exodus.
Right. Max exodus. And that there'd be, like a bunch of more Kryptons kind of showing up. And I think it's an interesting twist, but it really like throws a wrench in Superman's origin story that I don't super love. Like, why is he on Earth then? You know, like what's the point of that? So yeah, I can't say I would have loved to see that version. So I'm gonna have to give a whole big old disagree with Matthew Vaughn on that one.
I think it's an interesting idea that I've never really thought of, which I'll give props to that. And maybe there's a way to make it work, because obviously he needs to be on Earth somehow. And there'd probably be some story about like immigration along, like with
Sure.
within
Yeah.
the story.
There could be some good social commentary on that. Yeah.
But it does change a lot, and would I like to see a story where there's Zod, Lex Luthor, and Brainiac? Yeah, but
yeah, it would have been cool to finally see Brainiac in live action. Yeah,
but in a way, it does parallel. Like, did you finish My Adventures with Superman?
No, I didn't.
Shit. Okay.
Sorry. But it parallels that show. So I'll have to watch that.
Sort of. So there is a way to make it work, I think, because there's still, not to give anything away, but there is like a mystery. If the ending of the show is an indication, is what I think it could potentially be. There is a mystery as to like, why did Superman get sent to Earth?
Okay.
So
interesting.
I
like that. Okay.
Like there could be like maybe Krypton got ruled by Zod, and like Jor-El was gonna die, and he didn't want his son to die, and so he had to send him off. You know,
it's not a bad alternate reality. I kind of. Yeah, as long as there's good writing behind it, I can get behind an idea. So maybe I won't have to give a big old disagree to Matthew Vaughn. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, he also.
But I still prefer Man of Steel.
Well, yeah, for sure. He also commented on Star Wars. This one's an even bigger disagree, I have to say. He feels like Star Wars should be rebooted, and that they should just solely focus on the Skywalker family. I don't really get that, to be honest. We've had a lot of stories on the Skywalker family. I don't think it has to be delegated to just them, and I don't feel like those movies need to be remade anytime soon. They're pretty great classics, I would say. And I don't know. I just think all around it's not a strong idea, I would say.
I would say that there's the one or two points of like thoughts I have, which is one, I agree that, okay, I think you can reboot Star Wars if that's what Lucasfilm wants to do. You can do it, and it's a great story to be told again, just like a lot of classic stories have been told.
But why do it?
Well, hold on. So if they do choose to reboot it, it's a great story that, like, with modern VFX, like Matthew Vaughn was saying, and all the technology that they have now, where George Lucas was very limited to, you could tell this classic story just like they have done with a lot of classic stories. Like, how many times have they done A Star Is Born, and how many times have they done like Pretty Women at this point, and like Shakespeare and Hamlet? Like, there's a lot of stories that, and this is a great one. The issue if they did it, because I don't mind if they want to do it, because I have the original and I can always go back to the original. The issue that Lucasfilm would run into is they cannot continue like Ahsoka. They cannot continue everything else. They will have to then go back to the original story and go through it all over again. Which, if you speak like money-wise, you can make a lot of money because people know what they're getting for the most part.
But here's the thing. Like, for me, a reboot would have to, like, maybe you start the same way and add in a few little differences, but then you have to branch off for me to even care about the other sequels. Like, I'm not just gonna rewatch all the same movies again. Like, that's just not gonna happen.
We say that, but then Disney makes Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella remakes.
I don't watch them. I
know you don't, but like,
yeah. No, I feel you.
I agree. Like, if they did decide to reboot it, maybe change a few things. Maybe Empire Strikes Back has a new way that it goes about things. Maybe you have the ability to rewrite, like, you can go on after episode 6 and tell a whole thing, or you start right from like Phantom Menace, or you start from, back then and tell it all the way up to like Luke, but he obviously wants to tell it from like the Luke.
Well,
side
I mean,
of things.
he just says the Skywalker like family. So I mean, you could really start with Anakin because he's the first,
right?
You know.
But I guess but I guess it's just those two. He could do it. It's a great story. That, you know, I think with a lot of media, there's media that's from the 60s that a lot of people say is unwatchable because it's just their brains have already seen such amazing VFX and are not gonna be invested in watching something that came out in the 70s with the limited technology and whatnot. But the counterpart is that there's no more continuing the universe, which in theory is not the worst thing in the world.
Thing, because I'm not a huge fan of like where any of the story is going, except maybe in Ahsoka. Like I'm excited to follow like whatever the hell's going on with the Mortis gods there.
Right.
But that's about it. Like there's nothing else I'm excited to follow. So might not be a bad idea in that instance. Right.
I'm excited for the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew still though.
In a way I am, but I'm not giving like any high hopes for those shows. They failed on some Star Wars shows recently, and I don't trust their track record per se, but yeah, you know, we'll have to see on those.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean the Acolyte out of anything I would be the most excited for. Yeah, but I don't know if you want to jump to the other Matthew Vaughn part. He's also apparently rebooting Kick-Ass. Don't really get that either. No. Basically, he direct quote, he says, "None of the characters from the other Kick-Ass films will be in this. We'd like to bring them back after the reboot. The reboot is just going off on a tangent, apparently." So I don't think you could call this Kick-Ass because Kick-Ass wouldn't even be in the movie.
Is it characters or is it actors?
His direct quote says characters.
Yeah, that's strange.
That's I don't get that at all. I'm very confused. I don't know what I mean, obviously there's a whole comic universe out there for Kick-Ass, so there's a lot that we don't know about Kick-Ass. But yeah, who would want to see a Kick-Ass reboot without Kick-Ass? I mean, maybe it's like
10 years later, we pick up with other characters, and then like in a sequel, we get like Kick-Ass comes back. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, because the universe they set up wasn't bad.
No,
I didn't mind it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just very weird. Especially to like bring back the original director as well. Like just this, we're making Kick-Ass a you thing, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I also think if you're going to bring back Kick-Ass, I mean, some people would say if you're going to bring back Kick-Ass, yeah, bring back like the original director, like we've said with like, oh, you should get the original guy. Right. But I feel like after seeing Kick-Ass 2, like I personally don't think that he's done a very good job with sequels. Like Kick-Ass 2 was okay, and then The Kingsman, The Golden Circle was not good.
I also heard The King's Man wasn't very good either.
I actually didn't think it was I didn't think it was bad.
Yeah.
I liked a good amount of it, but it was nowhere near as good as the first Kingsman.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think 20th Century Fox was pretty smart at the time then to not let him direct Days of Future Past for X-Men.
Right.
He only did First Class. I mean, I guess he wrote like the overall story for Days of Future Past, but yeah, he did not direct. I mean, yeah, apparently. Oh, go on.
I was gonna say, like, I like the stuff that he starts off with. You know, like I'm excited to see Argyle coming out soon.
Oh, is that him? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, I mean Argyle looks fun. So that could be cool. But yeah, apparently he's also had talks with James Gunn about directing in his universe. I don't know what I would want for him to direct. Maybe The Authority, because I think that could be fun to have his kind of like crazy style in a way attached to like a superhero group. Like he's already had like X-Men First Class was a superhero group, so he has that experience. But yeah, I don't know what else I would want him to direct in that.
Yeah. I think he does a really great job with his action scenes of having these really syncopated, and he's really good with action. At like a fighting level, gunplay
really
level. Which if you could translate that into people who have actual powers, that could be cool. But if we want to stick with that sort of theme, I think something like a Nightwing or some sort of grounded like Green Arrow or Booster Gold. Could be.
No, I think he would have fun in a darker setting for sure. No, yeah, I think those are definitely good. I don't know if James Gunn is having conversations about like other parts of that universe other than the first 10 projects, you know?
Oh yeah. Maybe, I don't know.
He might be. I don't know.
I think he'd be a great addition.
Yes, I don't think he's a bad director at all. I just think he has some very radical ideas for properties, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all the Matthew Vaughn stuff that we wanted to talk about. But yeah, we teased the return of Hypotheticals, and this is the return here. I brought in a hypothetical because I just beat Spider-Man 2, the video game. Had a really hype time playing that. Thought it was great, and the actor who voices Spider-Man, Yuri Lowenthal, kind of talked about like what he would want from a potential sequel and like who he would want to partner with in a sequel. And he teased he would love to work with Deadpool. And so basically my question here is what superhero duo or non-duo that you would combine together that you would want to see in a superhero game, because there's also like the teased game of Captain America and Black Panther coming out.
Right.
So superhero duos are kind of in, apparently.
Yeah. Superhero duos. Well, and then we should also say that they're saying that the Wolverine game is supposedly set in the Spider-Man PS5 universe. It is.
But I don't think those two are going to interact. I mean, maybe in like a very small scene in like Wolverine they'll interact, but
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. So do you got an answer?
I kind of just would love to have a Batman and Superman game. All the fun of a Superman flying around, and then Batman's doing the detective gritty, like on the ground work, and Superman's flying around dealing with the big like threat.
I think that's going to be an interesting like feat to pull off, like because Spider-Man 2 does a great job of making them both like very balanced, where like both feel like you could kick ass like the same way with either, but just their different powers.
Right.
I don't know how you could pull that off with Superman and Batman because they're very different power scaling.
Yes. Yeah. I agree that it would be weird, potentially.
But it could be really cool too. Like I mess with it. Yeah.
Right. I tried thinking about stuff that would be more like, hey, and you jump in, but like I don't know. Yeah. I think it would be fun, especially after being promised that like there would potentially be a Superman game based in the Arkham verse, and that we were going to get like a Superman Arkham.
I wish they would have done that, man. Yeah,
that would have been
cool.
Would have
been nice. Would have been great. Okay. So is that it for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So mine, I have two. One is I would love to see a game of Rorschach and Nightwing.
That's
I
an
think
interesting pairing.
Yeah, well, not Nightwing. Sorry, Night Owl. My bad.
Okay,
Rorschach and Night Owl. Apologies.
I was
I
thinking
think-
that, but then I was like,
Like, all right,
I
Nightwing's there. Yeah.
no. I was thinking like Night Owl and Rorschach, but
Uh-huh.
they're similar in the because I know
Well-
like Miles Morales and Peter Parker are like similar, but I just when I think of those two, I think like the whole Watchmen crew, I guess. But
Right, but like so when watching, I mean, I've watched the movie a lot, but like there's always the scene where like Rorschach comes down and like they're standing in like the old like abandoned like railroad,
Right.
whatever you want to call it. And they basically kind of hint at the days where like they used to kind of like be a duo and like solve crime mysteries together. And I don't know. I think it would be very cool to see like the late 70s and Rorschach and Nightwing like solving like a street level mystery. I don't know. It'd be fun. Yeah. And plus, like you said, like they're very similar, like power level. You could have them.
right.
I mean, yes, they might be a little too similar, so it might be a little boring per se, because they're both fists,
right.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that could be really fun. The other is a similar kind of style because it's like these two are a part of a larger group. These next two are also part of a larger group. But I would love to see a Starfire Raven game. I don't think we've ever really got to see those two be a duo for an extended amount of time. And I think the contrast of like the very happy light person and the very sad dark powered person is a pretty great contrast in powers and personalities. And yeah, I think it would work really well.
I think that would definitely be a very fun, if not game, then show to watch.
Yeah, I think those two in any media would be fun to watch.
Yeah,
for sure. But yeah, that's my hypothetical.
I like those two.
Yeah, appreciate it. I like yours as well. And we will be back with some more hypotheticals, hopefully next week. But yeah, I think we just have two more topics. Sorry to keep you all here so long.
Some people want it to be like
right.
6 hours long, which I refuse to do at the moment.
I agree. I think
I love that somebody wants to have us talk for 6 hours, but it is not something that I can do right now.
I think if we were to ever live stream, maybe that's different.
Potentially.
But yeah, I don't think right now that's very feasible. So
it is hard enough to do the hour and a half usual.
Right. Yeah, we're gonna stick with that. But yeah, so we got two more topics. One being that The Office is rumored to have a reboot in the works.
Quote unquote reboot.
Right. Basically, from what I've read, is that there's not a definitive confirmation yet on this. But Greg Daniels has been in talks. The creator of The Office has been in talks with, well, not the creator, the showrunner of the American version. He's been in talks with NBC. Nothing's been confirmed yet. But that a potential reboot would be an extension of the series. So it would be a sequel rather than like a full-on remake. Which that's way better than
a reboot.
Like, because when I think of reboot, it's like it's new. It's like it's starting from scratch, and that to me is a huge mistake for The Office. I don't think you could ever capture the magic that cast had again, and that time period. And I think it would have been a huge failure if you did a reboot. But yeah, basically he compared like a potential extension of the show to like The Mandalorian and how they've been able to like extend Star Wars with The Mandalorian. And so in that sense, like I've always wanted like a one-off movie for The Office. Like, I think getting everyone back to like reunite for like some Christmas special is pretty like a great idea. I think the problem I have with like a series is that you had such a beautiful like ending to the whole series and sending off like 90% of the cast, and to bring everyone back, like, just it seems like a mistake. It feels like you're ripping away all those conclusions you had and just kind of forcing everyone to be back in the same environment. I don't even know how you could do that, like logically in a story situation. So I think in my mind, it would have to be like you're following, and yeah, spoilers for everyone who hasn't like finished The Office, but you would be following Dwight lead the Office branch that he's been leading for years. And there's a whole new crop of employees that are there. And like maybe you've kept a few, like Angela would probably still be there because that's his wife, but I don't know who else would still be there, you know? So yeah, I think a reboot is really risky and interesting, but I'm not totally against it with how Greg Daniels would set it up.
Yeah, I think that's a smart, astute take.
Appreciate that.
I was under the impression that it would be like the branch that Rashida Jones would potentially be a part of, or like some, not hers per se, but like, you know, just another branch, right?
Yeah.
And
I think hers was Albany or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I don't know.
Like have another branch, and then every now and then we might run into one of the characters from the original series.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought that's what they meant. Not necessarily. I mean, I could totally see what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it is where they just they set it in the same universe and just make a whole new crop of characters, but just at Dunder Mifflin.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like I would be more down for that, even more so than having like Dwight around, because I'm like.
But I think that works in a way because that brings in like the old viewers who like want to see Dwight and kind of continue his story. But then it allows, for everyone to get acclimated to like a whole new cast, because it would just be him and Angela maybe.
Right. You could probably like do it where like Dwight's like, now that I'm finally in charge, I got to completely, redo our employee staff so we are the most efficient. But some say I got too carried away, and now because like I don't know if you remember in the finale, like he straight up fires Kevin. Like Kevin is just gone because everyone knows he's like the worst employee at the office. So like he was already in the process of doing that, so that makes complete sense. Yeah. We'll see if it happens. I mean, every time there seems to be like every 6 months to a year, there's like the Office reboot is in the works, and it's not ever really like truly in the works. I don't need it. I don't need it either. Let's keep it what it was, and do maybe one special, like one Christmas special. Sure.
Yeah. So that's that for The Office. Last piece of news we wanted to talk about was some interesting A24 news. Basically, they want to kind of branch out into bigger and more popular IPs and start making movies about those. Like very recently, they were in the bidding war for the Halloween franchise. They didn't get that, unfortunately. I think that would have been pretty cool to see. But yeah, I know you're a huge A24 fan, so definitely want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think when I first read it, I was like, no, I don't want. But when I thought about it, and I read an article that was kind of detailing what their process of thinking about it was basically they're at the point where they are estimated to be worth about $2.5 billion.
Wow,
and
okay. That's cool.
Somebody who is a part of A24 or was kind of knows some stuff was saying basically, as much as they are known for doing auteurist, small character driven stories, not all the time. And this is the same way it's always like it's been with a lot of stuff, is they're not always as successful.
Right.
Beau is Afraid.
That lost a lot of money.
Lost a lot of money. Green Knight lost money, even though I think Green Knight is great. And there's a lot of movies that just like go under the radar.
Sure.
And not a lot of people see. But they were basically saying they're not going to stop doing that. But basically, they are interested in moving with some more popular IP to kind of do the same thing that I think like a lot of studios kind of are like, well, this isn't necessarily guaranteed money, but it's more guaranteed with the amount of like people who are following them and that the company's worth, to try to, I don't know, be able to maintain the money for the company so that they can still do the smaller stuff. I'm a little wary about it because the idea of them moving away from more original ideas kind of makes me sad, but it still sounds like they're going to still continue to do original stories. And I have no doubt that them getting their hands on more well-known IP doesn't necessarily mean that like they're going to stop being original takes on stories. Right. Because I think when I thought like big IP, like Halloween, is big IP, but it's still not super. It's not like necessarily like the scary thing that I thought they would maybe move towards, which is like I don't know, some toy,
like King Kong or
I don't know.
Right.
So I'm not super worried. I'm interested in what they would be looking after, and a lot of it does, and it does seem like it's like action based as well. They would like to get into. So it could be exciting, but it could also be I don't know.
I think I agree. I think this is a very smart move on their end. They have been losing a lot of money, but they also make a lot of money on certain movies, like Everything Everywhere All at Once. But it's not enough for them to sustain themselves. And so, get some bigger properties, but I think I have no doubt that they would have like their own style attached to these properties still. Like if we were to get Halloween, I think you could do a very like artistic take on Halloween. I don't doubt that I just don't think that they would lose themselves while making those movies.
Hopefully.
I just think it would just be on bigger IPs. And that's not a bad thing per se,
No, I think I think there's a lot of stuff that sounds cool and to look forward to.
Yeah.
Because there are some franchises like Halloween that could use some work. Like if they wanted to do like a Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, I would be down.
Right. Friday the 13th could be fun. Yeah.
There's some horror franchises, if they want to go that route, that could definitely use a boost.
Yeah. I mean, more than me on horror franchises, but I don't know. I trust A24 and their track record, and I think they would keep their artistic integrity intact, even with these bigger IPs.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like that's it for the podcast this week. Now this is the time we like to talk about what we watched in the past week. It's maybe more than a week at this point.
Yeah.
But do you have anything that you've been watching?
God, I can't remember off the top of my head. So
I can go first if you want.
Yeah, if you want to go first.
For me, I also finished Daryl Dixon, the show. Much better than Dead City, the other spinoff that I just watched for Walking Dead. But I think this story was a very very satisfying story for Daryl that didn't even involve like his motorcycle or his crossbow or his leather jacket. It was just a story about Daryl and his journey. And I think it works really well. And setting it in France just works so well for the entire setting. And yeah, I don't know. Making it 6 episodes, I was disappointed, but the length was pretty great, and you had a pretty good conclusion. I mean, I'm not going to say it's perfect because there's bits in there that, you know, they don't take the story as far as I wanted to with some of the ideas it had. But for the most part, it's a satisfying journey, and they set it up well for a season 2. So much more positive on that than most of what I've seen of The Walking Dead recently. I also started on season 2 of Winning Time. That's been pretty good. It's going a lot faster than season 1 was going, but still has the same quality of season 1. So
that's
no
weird
real
why they
complaints
didn't.
there.
They canceled it. If you're saying that,
To me, I think they canceled it. Like, one, because like we were in the middle of like a writer strike, like Screen Actor strike, and then 2, it didn't have a ton of support from the NBA, like that show. So I think it was just kind of getting harder to make it, maybe. But I don't know. Yeah, there's just I'm hypothesizing. But yeah, I think it's a bummer because you can tell like the first scene of season 2 is setting this up for a longer story, like a multi-season arc, and unfortunately it doesn't get to go the length it wants to. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else I've been watching because all my time has been in Spider-Man 2. So that might be it. Yeah.
I mean, how is Spider-Man 2?
Spider-Man 2 was great. A lot of cool like decisions it made on characters that hadn't been done in the comics before. Like, I don't know if you care about spoilers or not.
Yes.
You do. Okay.
I'm going to play it.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I heavily recommend. I think it's like, I don't like it as much as the story in the first one, but it's not like far off at all for me. Like it's very close.
Okay.
So yeah, it's great. And they improve it like on everything, honestly. Like the city, the swinging, the side missions, the like the crimes that pop up, I think it's all improved on from the first game. So
nice.
There's that. Yeah.
I've been watching Loki.
Oh yeah, same here. Yeah, but I'm not at the same spot as you are, because I'm assuming you've watched episode 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't seen 4 or 5.
It's great.
It is great.
And then besides that, I was watching a lot of Treehouse of Horror. I been catching up on Our Flag Means Death season 2.
Oh yeah. How's that?
It's not as good as the first season, but I'm hoping it'll get better.
Okay.
It makes me sad.
That is a bummer.
And then
because you loved season 1.
God, season 1's so good. Season 1's amazing.
Yeah.
And then we finished New Moon and Eclipse for the Twilight movies.
Nice. So you didn't get to finish them by Halloween.
Well, that wasn't the plan. It's still fall.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's like an October, November kind of thing. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I wasn't aware. I'm not a Twilight watcher, so
it just needs to be fall. You know.
Okay. Kind of like the Harry Potter movies in a way.
Sort of.
Yeah.
I feel like the Harry Potter movies you can watch at any time, just not the summer.
Yes, agreed. Because that would be very weird to watch in the summer. But I would say like October, November, December are prime months for Harry Potter.
Yeah, but then you miss the whole springtime. But yes, you're right. Like the fall and winter. Right. Those are the main seasons you get in Harry Potter. So yeah.
But you get spring too.
Sure, but like at the end of the movie. Not always.
I mean, that's usually how school year goes, you know.
I agree.
Yeah.
But the school year usually ends around June. So you still have March,
Sure.
April, May.
Sure. So yeah, you basically get summer at the end of the movie, barely.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so is that all you've been watching? Twilight and Loki and Treehouse of Horror?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's all we talked about. Not a crazy length. And sorry for those who want 6 hours. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen this time. Yeah, but
I'm sorry. It's not happening.
It's just not happening. But yeah, we appreciate your support and are so happy you guys are watching on YouTube and listening on our listening platforms. And if you want to listen to us and watch us in the future, we'll release at the beginning of the week, and those will be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean. And if you want to watch video, there's YouTube, and all those links will be in the description. The links for our social medias, Instagram and TikTok, are also in our description. And if you want to give us a like, a comment, a rating, a review, or subscribe, we would greatly appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you very much. Hopefully we'll be in studio next time. And until next time.